Hi, hello. Hello, this is the My Artifact episode number 3000, 3989. Today's date is 8th of April 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 8:34 a.m. Alright, let's just jump to the question. Okay, so question is, do I complain more about a problem or do I actively look for solution and positive situation? That's a really good question. Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? A couple of days ago, I read a book, How to Win and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and it was a really amazing book. I highly recommend to you to read this book. I read this book and I wanted to implement the value that book taught me. How do I supposed to do that? By asking question to myself and giving the honest answer. So I went to ChatGPT, kind of like I said that ki I read this book, I wanted to implement the value, suggest me 20 question. So ChatGPT kind of like suggest me 20 question, and this is one of those questions. By the way, all those questions are actually in the mobile phone, but because of it's a recording, I cannot do things. So that's why I wrote question in here. By the way, if you are looking at, this is the new book that I'm reading right now, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It is also really amazing book too. Okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah. So the question is, how do I complain more about problem? Sorry, how do I do I complain more about problem or do I actually look for solution and positive situation? It means that na ki constructive criticism, like are you kind of like a only particular person who just always kind of like a talking about the problem and things and that, or are you kind of like a particular person who just kind of like a somebody give the kind of like a somebody such a option that might impact positive, like a positive criticism? Am I that or am I not? Okay, so there is a couple of things that I wanted to mention, okay, about myself. It's not about myself, but throughout this like okay, I am not a particular person who do complain all the time. Okay, and most of the time I kind of like somebody try to make sure that if I'm doing complaint or doing criticism, I probably make sure that I would have a kind of like a solution for that, or kind of like constructive criticism would be much more better. Okay, or if I don't have that constructive criticism, then I would not do that criticism that much, I would not gonna do complaint that much, because sometimes I just let it go. Now this is kind of like a mentality that I've been developed inside of my head, is not actually happen automatically. Okay, yeah, it's not being that I choose to be this. No, there are so many factors are actually kind of like responsible for that. Okay, let me tell you step by step. First of all is that I am usually very calm person. Okay, I'm not kind of like only saying this thing that I'm like a really good point. No, but yeah, I'm legitimately very calm person. And basically from genetic point of perspective, yes, because my father is a very calm person too. My grandfather is also really calm person too. My father's father, grandfather, they are also calm person too. And another thing is that my father's brother is also very calm person too. Okay, yeah, like calm person means it's not that we don't really yell or things like that, but still we don't really have that kind of like some blabbered thing that much. Okay, yeah. So, and that's why it just kind of like somebody just transfer those genes into me too. Okay, yeah. So that's why I don't really do that much like a talk. Okay, yeah. So that is a one point from genetic point of perspective. Okay, yeah. So because of I'm very calm, I kind of like somebody taking action according to the look at the scenario and try to implement that. Okay, this is the one factor. Okay, another factor is that um, I am recording this artifact. I cannot tell you how much artifact is kind of like add so much amount of value in me. I'm been recording this kind of like a something this kind of like a video or you audio kind of like a things recording this stuff since 2015. It's been almost like a 11 year. Okay, I'm doing this thing consistently, by the way, every single day. Okay, every single day I'm kind of like a somebody record this artifact and things and that what exactly happened throughout my day, good thing, bad thing, I just talk about that. Okay, basically is this thing the one of the important reason to kind of like a talk a lot or complain a lot is because of that key they don't really get privilege of kind of like a something that key express themselves. Okay, so that's why they just talk a lot. That's why like most of people are actually talk a lot or complain a lot is because of that key first thing they have a habit, and another thing is that key they don't really have any kind of like a kind of like a space that they could kind of like something express themselves. Okay, yeah, and that's a problem because like basically is this thing na ki sometime I just feel like that ki my father is also kind of like a some very like a frustrated person too. Sometimes they just kind of like a talk something. I know they are very calm person because of me. I understand I am very calm person too. So they have that kind of like ability to calm person, but because of they don't really recording artifact, so that's why they don't really have any kind of like a place so that they would supposed to be kind of like a release all those frustration and things and that. Uh, like basically why does people don't really get that kind of like assembly the space where they could kind of like express their thoughts and things. Well, basically is this thing there is only two scenario, like only one scenario that actually exists in the entire world that we could supposed to be share our thoughts, and that particular person would be your significant other, your wife, your girlfriend. Okay, yeah, at the beginning you are kind of like a sharing your thoughts, she is actually sharing your thought at the beginning of relationship. But once that time is too much, like 20 year of relationship or 20 year of marriage and things and that, then that kind of like a somebody is this thing, then that kind of like a fade away. Okay, that relationship fade away. So sometimes feel relationship fade away, then probably is this thing now that ki we don't really talk that much. Okay, yeah, because love is a kind of like a things that ki it does not do constant until and unless you are kind of like a putting an effort. Okay, yeah, if you're not putting effort, then love is kind of like a fade throughout the time too. Okay, so this is what it is. Like my father is a very calm person, he's actually way more calmer than me. Okay, but because of they are kind of like a married for last 30 year, okay, 30-35 year, and right now they don't really have any kind of like a person to kind of like express themselves, so they just sometimes just blunt it out, something like that. I'm trying to comparing him and me because we are kind of like a sharing the same genes, and we understand, like I understand that key what he's kind of like a been through and how that actually happened inside of their brain and things and that. Okay, yeah, so that's why they are kind of like a bit really frustrated. Sometimes they just kind of like a yell a lot and things and that. But my father is not that thing. Like I really remember that when my father, like my father is right now retired, but my father is kind of like a doing a job. They just kind of like a laser focus. They don't really kind of like a yell a lot. They don't like I talk a lot. They just kind of like a do the work, do the things, and they just sometimes they just talk when it necessary. Only that time they talk, and rest of the time they just focus on their work. Same thing. Like I have that same thing. Okay, like my father. Okay, so basically it's this thing that keep. That's why I realized that key, since they are not recording artifact, they have that kind of like a somebody is this thing they're inside of their brain, that are kind of like a, so many thoughts are actually cooked up. Okay, yeah, and when there is a kind of like opportunity came, they just blast it out, and that blasted out kind of like a called as a frustration. Okay, yeah, and not just my father, every person on the planet is kind of like a somebody facing that kind of like a particular problem. The only way that this problem does not seen when you are in relationship or when you are kind of like a somebody fall in love and things and that that frustration is kind of like a expressed with the kind of like a second person and things and that. Okay, yeah, so this is what it is. But right now, because of I'm recording artifact for last 11 year, okay, yeah, every single day, so my thoughts are I could able to be expressed. Okay, whatever inside of my mind, stress, whatever it is, I express in this kind of like a audio log or video log, whatever it is. Okay, yeah, so I get opportunity to express my thoughts. Okay, and that is a kind of like a very much essential, like basically just imagine that ki your brain is a kind of like a simply generating thoughts every single day, like a averagely almost like we are thinking about 60,000 times per day, like we are actually generating thoughts. Okay, yeah, but that thought is not kind of like a simply like a express to another, like basically just kind of like a comes with the kind of like a, let's just say cooker. Okay, yeah, a cooker kind of like a simply create a thoughts every single day. Okay, yeah, but if that lid is not open, then probably that thoughts are accumulated in top layer. Okay, yeah, the thoughts will always increase, and it will even increase even more when that thoughts are kind of like accumulated in one space. It just increase even more faster, even more faster. Okay, yeah, and when it kind of like a things, it just blast it out. That is called frustration. Okay, yeah, another thing is that this is the lid is kind of like a loose when you are fall in love. Okay, yeah, and another thing is that why this kind of like a frustration kind of like a so much popped up, even if that kind of like a frustration doesn't really have release, is because of kind of like a lack of purposes, or lack of kind of like a something that lack of what you should supposed to be do. Like example is this thing now, when you have a purpose to do, you are kind of like a thoughts regarding about purpose, that what should you supposed to do. If you don't really have any purpose, like you don't really have purpose, you just kind of like a thinking about variable factor, like this is our brain kind of like a work like that way. We are kind of like a think about this, that so many factor at the same time, because we are not really purposeful, we are just scattered and things and that. Okay, yeah, so because of we are thinking about multiple direction and things and that, it just all thoughts came inside, and it just kind of like a cooped up in the things because lid is not open yet. Okay, yeah, and this is just frustration lot. Okay, but artifact do something very different. Artifact is kind of like a things that because of it's not a kind of like a somebody lid, it just open space, this is not even exist. Okay, yeah, so basically whatever the thoughts is actually, it just evolved, it just grow, and it just share in this kind of like a video and artifact, not just share, but like basically it just kind of like a grow. So when it grow, it kind of like because of I'm recording this thing, I have a purpose, I have stuff to do in my life and things and that. So it gives me opportunity to think, it gives me new idea, it gives me it evoke my creativity much more better and things and that. That's why it just kind of like grows and things and it doesn't really have that much pressure. Okay, even if I have a kind of like a girlfriend or things and that, I had just nothing really at all. Sometimes that pressure is kind of like a still exists because of the responsibility and kind of like you are living in society. I'm 32, still living with the parents and things and that. So it just kind of like still it exists, but very thin level. It does not really impact me that much, because since every single day I'm kind of like a recording artifact, I'm sharing those thoughts, I'm kind of like somebody expressing everything, it just release. So my thoughts is not accumulated, and that's why I didn't really get frustration. Okay, and because of I didn't really get frustration, my mind is kind of like making sure that I would kind of like generate more ideas, more solution, more constructive criticism regarding about every problem and situation surrounding. So this is what kind of like a artifact is really helped me to kind of like a somebody not to do that kind of like a complaint that much things and that. Okay, yeah, but there's a one question another I have to ask. If let's just say I am a kind of like a particular person, I am a very calm person, my genetics are very calm person because my father things and that. But what if my like I am come from such a family where kind of like a somebody, all my family background are kind of like a very frustrated people, like a Kabir Singh from the Kabir Singh movie. Okay, yeah, so in that particular situation, does artifact really gonna help me? Well, yeah, it is, because let me tell you one thing now, ki even if who you are person, what kind of like a particular person that you are, okay, artifact just like this is not exist na at that time. Okay, yeah, you have opportunity to talk, like a basically this thing, the stuff that I'm talking, if you are kind of like listening right now in from some sort of amount of screen, okay, like you are listening this on YouTube platform. Okay, yeah, ask this question to yourself right now. Imagine you are in front of me right here right now. Okay, yeah, would you listen to me? You will not. Why even if I am kind of like this person that you are, that's why you are kind of like listening, but still you are not. Why is that? Why is that ki you are kind of like listening on some sort of amount of screen, but you are not listening to me live? What is the reason? The reason is that flexibility. Okay, yeah, when you are in front of me, you cannot pause, you cannot speed up, you cannot do anything. You just either listen or forget. Okay, yeah. So you don't want to kind of like a something this thing listen, because it just kind of like a thing that na ki, if you are listening me on some sort of platform or any player or things and that, you could pause me anytime, you could stop me anytime, you could kind of like a play forward backward anytime. It's like that now you will decide how I should supposed to be talk, and you decide how should you supposed to be get information inside your head. Okay, yeah. But when you are in live, you don't really have that flexibility. Okay, yeah. So because of you don't really have that flexibility, you might not listen that much. Even if you love me, even if you have kind of like a really admire to me and things and that, you might not listen, because I talk continuously for almost like a 30 minutes. Would you listen? Would you not? It's just kind of like a things. And I'm not talking about just a kind of like a things. There are so many external factors are kind of like a thinking about at the same time. Because let me tell you one thing, when you try to enter some sort of information, you have to open up the gate. Okay, yeah. But sometimes that gate is kind of like a something is this thing na ke open up in so many factors. Like sometime right now you are kind of like a listening to me at the moment because you want to listen me, because you want to listen to me, right? Yeah. So that's why you kind of like put your phone aside, that's why you're not scrolling reel at the same time, right? So here's what it is. Understand yourself, why are you kind of like listening to me at the moment? Okay, yeah. You are kind of like listening me is because of you wanted to me. Okay, yeah. That's why you kind of like step all those things aside. But in reality, if you are in front of here, you might not listen. Okay, yeah. And that is kind of like a things. Do this experiment. Okay, do this experiment. Whatever you are kind of like your fiance, your girlfriend, or whoever the person. Okay, yeah. Try to talk. Okay, yeah. I'm sure definitely you will might not gonna kind of like a listen that other person kind of like a talking blabber blabber blabber, and you just kind of like a listening for almost like a last 20 minutes. Like you might thinking that, oh shit. Okay, yeah. So this is what it is. This is what it is. Like basically this thing in real life, we are expecting communication. One, like we talk, you talk, we talk, you talk, you talk, we talk. Okay, yeah. But when you are kind of like a something in some sort of screen, you are expecting to me to talk. Okay, expecting to me to talk. Okay, yeah. So that's why you just kind of like a shut up, and that's why you just kind of like not looking at the phone and things and that. There are so many factors too. Okay, there are like a basically this thing na ki you are kind of like a listening this thing is because of that ki you already knew me. Also is this thing you are kind of like a listening this thing because of that ki I already established something in my life, and you just want to study me. Okay, yeah. There are so many factors are kind of like simply responsible for that. You will not gonna kind of like a watch this video if YouTube kind of like a recommend to you. Definitely not. You will literally search about Saurabh Bothare, and you are kind of like watching this video. Okay, you will like basically this video is nothing really at all na. Like I'm just talking, that's it. There is no kind of like a music background, like any kind of like animation, nothing really at all. It really required a kind of like a really high effort to watch the video. Okay, yeah. So let me tell you one thing na. It is only the only way that you are kind of like watching this thing is because of that ki I am became already something. So that's why you are kind of like want to listening to me. Okay, so this is what kind of like our mind is actually work and things and that. So what I'm trying to tell you, what is at least this thing? My question was that ki if I am the kind of like a particular person who angry a lot, does that artifact will kind of like help me a lot? Yes, it is. Yes, it actually help you a lot, even more stronger than mine. Like basically this thing that ki I am already a calm person. Okay, yeah, because of the genetics and things and that. So because I'm very calm person, so I don't really have that much kind of like some places stuff to stay. Even if I want to stay, I have this artifact. But if you are kind of like a very angry person, you are angry is because of something that doesn't really happen according to you. Okay, yeah. And that thing that kind of like something stuffed up, cooked up on your head, it's kind of like forcing you too much. It kind of like something like basically what exactly is this thing now? A normal people, when the so many thoughts are accumulated in the pressure cooker, some people sustain, some people suffer, some people yeah. But if you are kind of like a particular person who get angry, that cooked up thought process you cannot handle, and you wanted to do the violence, because like some people do frustration to express this pressure. Some people use violence for that. Okay, some people use violence for that. And if you are that kind of like a particular person, it does really help you a lot, because like you are flowing this thing. You like whatever the thoughts inside of you, you just flowing this thing. Okay, yeah. And you just kind of like make it calm and things. Okay, let me tell you one thing. Artifact will kind of like allow you to express yourself. It kind of like something stop you that much pressure in your head. Okay, yeah. But it does not kind of like something change your behavior. If your behavior is a violence, you will do violence, you will gonna do violence. But before that, before artifact, you might gonna do so much violence. After artifact episode, you might do very less violence, you might do very less violence. But violence is a kind of like a things inside your head, because of this is the kind of like a factor that comes from your family. So you might gonna do violence and things and that might be you, before artifact you might do less, or you might do more. After artifact you might do less. So this is what kind of like things will gonna happen and things and that. Okay, so I don't know how should I suppose how I kind of like get value from artifact. Like this is kind of like a stuff that I'm talking. No one kind of like teach me. I get this thing from talking to myself and things and that. This is because of that key. I kind of like express, imagine thoughts, understand, finding solution and things, understanding human psychology and works and things, and I'm talking to myself for almost like a 13-year non-stop. So because of I understand much more deeply, and that's why I'm kind of like giving this stuff. Oh yeah. So because of this kind of like artifact, it does really help me a lot to not to do a complaint. Okay, yeah. So these are kind of like a two reason, but I think that na ki one of the biggest reason that I don't do a complaint a lot, or I'm kind of like a focus on constructive criticism a lot, is because of the artifact. Yeah, it is because of artifact. So just like I don't know, just like record the artifact, dude. Like record. I don't know who you are, particular person, and obviously you are kind of like listening this thing is because of that you already kind of like a recording artifact, and you already knew what kind of like advantage that you get from things and that. So yeah, kudos to that. Okay. So the question is that the question I was completely forget. The question is, do I complain more about problem? No, I do not. Do I actively look for solution and possible situation or possible solution? Yes, I do. Yeah, sometimes I try to think, try to research, and try to figure it out. Alright, yeah. So this is it, and